Hey everyone, it's Nikki. Welcome or welcome back. Today is week 1 of my I Love Christmas series. I'll be sharing a new project with you each week, all the way through the holidays, and sometimes a bonus video. So if you like festive DIYs, make sure you're subscribed and see me each week for a little holiday cheer. I'm starting out with my clay-based paint in the color Simply White and adding a little bit of salt wash to it. That mix is going to help these plastic bells look more like old plaster ones. These are going to be Christmas bells, and I just love how fun and festive they're going to look once they're all finished. So for my first bell, I'm using an image that came in my Sonnets Maker's box. I gave it a light spritz of water, just to soften the paper a bit. Then I tore around the edges so it had more of that organic, worn look, something that feels a little more aged and natural rather than just straight lines from cutting it with scissors. So I'm going to brush on some liquid patina, set that paper right into it because the bell has a curved shape. Bells are very hard to work with, just so you know. I did need to tear along the sides and then overlap the pieces just a bit and press them right down into that patina and begin brushing over the top with more of that patina just to get everything sealed in. Now, if you missed one of my videos recently, I made a big, it was huge, a big bell, like probably 2.5 size of these, and it just came out absolutely beautiful. If I can remember, I will link that down below so you can check it out. But as you can see, I am tearing as I go here and there, just the areas that just don't want to curve with my bell. Now I'm going to go pretty fast on this, so hang in there with me. This is my bows mold by IOD, and I'm casting some of these pretty delicate florals, dusting my mold first, rolling my clay in between my hands into like a long rope, and then pressing it down into my mold, flexing my mold, and then rolling it back to release my casting. Then I grabbed my Victoriana mold, and this is also by IOD, and started casting some of this gorgeous trim. It's about 3 inches or so, so I had to make many of them to piece together. And I'm going to put it all the way around the rim of my bell. And of course, I'm using Titebond Quick and Thick to adhere it. I'm trying not to apply too much because it does dry kind of like a yellowish brown. In the end, it doesn't matter because I use glazes that just cover most of it up, so it's fine. I'm adding my Titebond Quick and Thick to the back of my casting and using my finger to spread it out evenly. And then I'm pressing it snugly right next to the other one and wiping back any excess glue. Just like I mentioned earlier, my cloth is slightly damp, which helps smooth out any little imperfections in the casting. So those little flowers that I cast earlier, I did have quite a bit of breakage, as you saw. And like I mentioned before, I probably should have popped them in the freezer first. But you know what? Happy accident. I ended up piecing them together so they look like they're scattered across the top of the bell, kind of trailing down a bit. And honestly, I really like how it turned out. It fills in that oddly shaped space just perfectly. As I'm adding these, I'm already imagining how I want the flowers to continue trailing down. So I end up pulling out one of Redesign's molds. It has beautiful cherubs and elegant florals and pretty swirls. And I'm going to start by casting a few of the swirls and then just seeing how they all flow together with the rest of my design. I'm really trying to make sure that I'm pressing my clay down into my mold, taking my time with these designs as they're so delicate and full of really tiny details, and I often have a lot of breakage, so I'm being extra careful to make sure every swirl and petal is filled in real well. And as you can see, I'm thinking through how I want this to flow, so I do end up deciding to separate my casting and apply it in two different sections, letting the pieces continue that soft trail of the flowers cascading downward. If clay really isn't your thing, you could always use resin instead. You just want to work in small batches and move really quickly, since resin does set quite fast. It's best to catch it while it's still malleable, especially when you're working with a tricky curved surface like this one. I just prefer to work with clay. I find a lot of relaxation, and for me, it's therapy. I enjoy it very much, and I do enjoy resin as well. I just prefer to work with clay, as if I have any breakage or anything, I can easily fill that in. But with resin, sometimes I have air bubbles, and I mean, I can't correct that, right? And it's just the way it is. But just do whatever you prefer. It'll look beautiful either way. And of course, you could skip this altogether. This would look really pretty with just, that decoupage piece on the front, and maybe just putting a frame around that decoupage piece. There's all kinds of fun things that you could do with this. And then these little molds came from Amazon, and I'm going to cast this swag right at the top of my design. Now I'm casting little bells. I'm going to put right alongside of my swag. These are a little tricky as there's not a micro rim, so it's really hard to get your clay pushed in there well. They release well, but sometimes I feel like I overfill them and the image is a bit distorted. And then I cast this little candy cane and put that on the side of my paper. Back to the resin real quick. I've heard that if you warm up your resin, you're less likely to have air bubbles. I just want to know if that works for you. I typically use a little rubbing alcohol. I'll spritz it into my mold first and then put my resin in, but I still get air bubbles. So tell me what works for you. I love tips and tricks. This is my bows mold. This is also one of Redesign's new releases, and I chose a little tiny one. I put right at top of my, I can't talk, right on top of my swag. There we go. And I cast some little florals. I'm going to put right where my pieces meet, the ones around the rim, just putting them right where they meet. And then I went in with some more white paint over my castings, just did one coat, let that dry, then went in with a coat of Extreme Guard satin, let that dry, and going in with this brown sugar glaze. So here I'm working all around my casting, stippling with my brush to help move that glaze down into those low points. On the raised areas, it can be a little tricky to get that glaze to move around. So I start by adding a little bit of water, actually quite a bit, just to loosen it up. And I'm also using my brush to guide it along, helping it settle naturally into those little crevices. The combination of the water and brushing really does the trick when it starts to get built up in those small little areas and, all the fine details. And then I just wipe back as much as I want. I want my main focus to be in those low points, and then the glaze just to kind of add a little bit of age to the rest of my bell. Before I forget, once this was dry, I gave it another coat of Extreme Guard satin, and that was it. And this is how our first bell came out. I think this one is so pretty. I'm just loving the details around the rim. Let me know what you think of this one. All right, on to our second bell. This is, I think it's called the Globes mold by IOD, and I'm casting the little houses on the bottom. There's also a small church, And I'm going to continue casting some of the trees and the small animals. There's so much detail in this mold, and the scale is just perfect for smaller projects like this. I definitely recommend keeping this one in your creative arsenal. It's one of those versatile molds that works beautifully with just about anything. I love this one. So as you can see here, I'm casting some of the trees. I think there's like 3 different size trees, and I'm going to do a lot of layers with this one, overlapping my castings, and I'll just let you watch as I work. I just want to say I am so sorry for the background noise. You probably can hear my dogs, and it's probably a bit distracting for you. I have my 2 dogs today and my grand dog, and it's really quiet in the house, so you can hear their little nails clicking here and there all over the floor. I just love them, but I also know what it's like as a viewer to be watching a tutorial and hearing noises in the background, such as animals, kids, smoking, outside noises such as cars and such. So I'm sorry about that. I'm adding a little more Titebond Quick and Thick. I've noticed I'm going back and forth, and the small bottle that I have my glue in is a little hard to work with. The cap keeps getting in my way, so this is much easier to have my glue readily available. If you're still watching, thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I appreciate you just taking a moment out of your day to watch my video, and I hope my dogs aren't too distracting for you. And if you like this video, of course, do all the things like, subscribe. I just so appreciate you stopping by. And if you're new here, say hello and let me know what you think of this video. Here I'm casting these small little animals. There's a fox, a deer, and a little squirrel. I just love these little tiny animals, and I'm using my Cricut tool to clean up the sides, and that seems to work pretty well when there's overhang. So I need to fill in some more of these spots. So once again, I'm casting some more trees and these houses. And yeah, I'll just let you watch. Now that the bottom's done, I'm going to start casting some of these little snowflakes. There's several different designs, and there's some clouds with these little birds. I'm going to add a couple of those as well, and I'll let you watch as I put this together. I then let my castings dry for about 2 hours so they have a nice crust on them. And I'm going to take some chalk paint in the color ivory. I got it at the Dollar General, and it's more like a fleshy peachy pink color than it is ivory. I really like it. I think it's soft and pretty. So this is what I'm painting this second bell with, and I let that dry overnight. And I'm going in with Pink Couture's Van Dyke Brown, and again I'm stippling, getting into all those low points, and then of course using my water mister to move that glaze around. I let that dry for a bit, and now I'm bringing in the color Oyster Pearl. It's a beautiful metallic shade. All of the paints here that I'm using are going to be metallics, and I'll mention each one as I go. I'm not looking for full coverage, mainly on the trees. I just want to bring definition into this piece. So as you can see, I'm wiping back that green. It's called Verde green. And I don't know if I told you the color of the blue. I think it's called Sky Blue. They're all by Pink Couture. For my animals, I'm using some bronze metallic paint, and I'm going to go over all of them. And in a minute here, you're going to see that there's a steeple on the church. I add a little bit of the bronze metallic paint to that as well. But right now, I'm going over everything with my snow pen. I go a little crazy with the snow pen, but I love snow. I have lived in New England my whole life, and I enjoy snow very much. So I will let you watch me add the snow, and I do take out my crystal pen and add that here and there. And this is our second bell. I think this one might be my favorite. You'll have to let me know, but that soft, dusty rose pink is just so elegant and soft. All right, on to our third bell. I used some Dollar General black chalk paint, painted the whole thing. All I needed was one coat. And then IOD's Gilded Transfers. I'm just going to place them here and there, and I'm using some typography along the bottom, and it's just gonna look like it's kind of trailing off the side of the bell. It's really hard, you know, like I mentioned with this shape, it's very tricky to work with, but I do love how this comes out. I think you'll like it too. You can't go wrong with gold against black. It's just so timeless and elegant, and um, I don't know. I just think that it's just absolutely lovely. Let me know, do you like gold? It's one of my favorite colors. Then I dug in my stash and pulled out this pretty resin piece, and I want it to fit my bell. And again, it's tricky. So I got to warm it up with my embossing gun. It gets pretty hot too. If you do this, you really got to take your time. Um, you don't want to try and speed up the process. You want to slowly warm it up and then begin working with it. But as you can see, I'm just trying to curl it a bit with my hands. But once it gets too hot, I got to pull my sleeves down, and that actually makes it so much easier to give it that curve that I need. And then I take some Gorilla Glue gel and a little bit of hot glue. Be careful though, you don't want to mix your hot glue in with your super glue. And then pressed it right on there, and that's it. The only thing is, okay, when you heat up black resin, it does discolor sometimes. But I was a little confused because that discoloration went onto my bell, so I gotta look that up and kind of research that. I went over the whole thing with some more Extreme Guard satin, made sure I gave it a good coat, and let that dry. It dries rather quickly. Then I took some liquid patina and put that right on the middle of my frame, and then Santa's sweet face. This is the image I got off of Etsy. And again, really tricky to get this put down. I do have a few wrinkles, but I'm not really worried about that because I'm going to go in with some crackle medium, and hopefully that will come out good. So I used a little bit of plastic wrap to even it out, and then I sealed everything in with more patina, let that dry. And what you saw there, I was going over it with crackle medium step 1, and now I'm doing step 2, and you want to give them 30 minutes in between. After about 30 minutes, I went over it with some light brown sugar glaze, and it wasn't really settling into the cracks as much as I wanted it to. So then I took out Van Dyke Brown and worked that into the cracks, and then wiped that back. And that didn't still do the trick. So I'm like, okay, well, I think it's because I used water. Like I used a damp rag to pull it back. Sometimes I just don't think when I do stuff. I don't know. But I'm going to go back in here in a minute. I'm just going around the sides of my frame with some bronze metallic paint and then wiping that back. Yeah, I do things, and then once I do them, I'm like, what was I thinking? I mean, you can use a damp rag, but sometimes with crackle, you don't want to because you want it to sit down into those cracks. This time I just used a dry rag to wipe it back, and I got the exact look that I was going for. Lastly, I added some glossy Mod Podge. This is all I have on hand. I really want to get like a high gloss varnish. I know Pentart has one that's quite popular that I'll get eventually. I just placed another order, so I'm going to have to wait a minute to get it. But I would love to have that high gloss, especially for ornaments like this. I think it really elevates ornaments. And this is all 3 of them together. I absolutely love these bells, and all the time that I put into them was so worth it. Let me know if I've inspired you. Would you work with clay, or do you work with clay? Would you make something like this? Don't forget to subscribe and leave me a comment down below. As always, I have a series coming up. It's called I Love Christmas series, and I hope to see you there, and you can join me all the way up through the holidays. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Until the next one, bye.